Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating historical perspective from the land brokerage firm LandLimited. We're going to unpack their core argument on exactly why physical, rural land endures through the ages and, spoiler alert, why they argue it absolutely beats out modern assets as a legacy builder. So if you've ever wondered how real, generational wealth has fundamentally been stored across centuries, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you, what is the ultimate legacy asset? Think about it. In our modern world, it is so incredibly easy to get completely caught up in digitized, transient assets, right? We're surrounded by complex financial products, centralized networks, and numbers just flashing on screens. But the folks at LandLimited challenge us to literally look away from the screen and look down at the tangible dirt beneath our feet. They argue that true, generational security doesn't come from a server. It comes from assets you can actually walk on and steward with your own hands.
To see how they build this argument, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the ancient foundation of wealth, then look at preserving value across centuries, move into the American homestead legacy, and finally wrap up with the modern raw land advantage.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the ancient foundation of wealth, foundation of empires.
To truly understand the gravity of land, we really have to look backwards at how empires historically measured power. And we're talking way back. Across the nobility of Europe, the dynastic families of China, and the landowners of pre-colonial India, true intergenerational power was not measured in a bank account. It just wasn't. It was measured in acreage. Centralized government currencies, take the Roman denarius for example, often proved totally transient. They rose and fell with the exact empires that minted them. But the fields, the forests, the physical dirt that those currencies bought, those stuck around. The source makes a great point here. Land preserves intrinsic value precisely because it just outlasts economic and political instability.
And honestly, there's a very logical reason for this endurance. Historically, land provided the absolute non-negotiable essentials of society. We're talking food production, resource extraction, and just raw space for expansion. But perhaps the most crucial point, and this is a big one, is its immunity. Unlike fiat currency, physical land couldn't just be printed out of thin air, and it couldn't be destroyed by a sudden government decree. It was a tangible constant in a wildly unpredictable world.
Moving right along to Section 2, preserving value across centuries, a hedge across centuries.
Let's do a little mental time travel, jumping forward to the 1800s to see how this asset holds up over a really long time horizon. Imagine a piece of rural acreage purchased out in the American West back in 1826. Fast forward a full century to 1926, and its fundamental utility, whether that's grazing cattle or extracting resources, is firmly maintained. Fast forward another century to today, 2026, and its physical value remains completely intact. The dirt hasn't evaporated. That intrinsic utility, it's still right there.
Which leads us perfectly to this thought-provoking question directly from our source material: how many financial institutions or stocks from 1826 are still operating today? How many currencies from that era have held their value without just massive manipulation? Actually, scratch that. You probably already know the answer. It's almost none. By pointing this out, the source draws a super sharp contrast. They're suggesting that raw land acts as a direct, unintermediated connection to value, totally bypassing the modern risks of centralized finance.
That brings us to Section 3, the American homestead legacy, the American frontier.
You know, the story of America is fundamentally a story of land. And right at the center of that narrative is the Homestead Act of 1862. This was an absolutely revolutionary piece of legislation because it codified a powerful idea that land is the ultimate tool for building personal security. It gave everyday individuals the opportunity to secure a physical stake on the frontier and literally convert raw, untouched dirt into a productive, lasting family legacy.
So how does that historical spirit translate to today? Well, when the brokers at LandLimited are out vetting modern inventory, whether they're walking off-grid acreage in Alaska, the sweeping plains of Northern California, or the Colorado interior, they are actively hunting for very specific homestead legacy traits. They want land that is solar-ready, land with clean water potential, places positioned far away from urban centers that ultimately offer a blank canvas for true self-sufficiency. Essentially, they are looking to capture that 1862 spirit of independence for the modern buyer.
Which leads us to our final section, the modern raw land advantage, modern legacies.
So, why do all these history lessons actually matter for your portfolio today in 2026? According to the source, modern raw land offers 3 very distinct advantages over digital assets: simple stewardship,
diversification and control, and ease of transfer. Let's break these down real quick and see how they stack up against the more complex stuff.
First up is simple stewardship. Look, if you own a developed rental property, you are constantly battling wear and tear. You've got leaky roofs, broken appliances, ongoing maintenance. It's a lot. Raw land, on the other hand, requires incredibly minimal upkeep. You handle the property taxes, you do occasional inspections, and honestly, that's pretty much it. Raw dirt doesn't break down, and it certainly doesn't call you at 2 a.m. with a plumbing emergency.
The second big advantage is diversification and control. The stock market can be a total roller coaster. It often feels like a giant storm cloud hanging over your portfolio. But raw land? It's a non-correlated asset. Plus, as the owner, you maintain total, uncompromised control. Whether you want to hold it as a pure long-term investment, build an awesome family retreat, or develop a fully sustainable off-grid homestead, the stewardship and the vision are 100% yours.
And the third advantage is ease of transfer. When we're talking about estate planning, raw land provides heirs with a clear physical inheritance. As the source notes, it's often way easier to manage and understand than a super complex portfolio of digitized financial products. Instead of passing down a confusing web of digital accounts, hidden fees, and passwords, you are literally just passing down a physical location on a map.
Which brings us to the end of this explainer. The source leaves us with a highly provocative question to chew on regarding our own legacies. Is your family's security hanging by a thread on a centralized network, or is it stewarded on a real physical foundation? It's an incredibly fascinating lens through which to view modern wealth, isn't it? It reminds us that sometimes the absolute most enduring asset isn't floating up there in the cloud, it's the ground right beneath our feet. Thanks so much for joining me today on The Explainer, and keep building that knowledge.